Okay. So this is already combined as one piece of geometry. I'm going to target weld, and actually I'm gonna not only make it as, like, I can still separate these out. I can say mesh separate, but I'm going to use them combined, but I'm going to make the handle as a permanent part of the megaphone. So before I do that, let me turn off my character so that I can see the megaphone better. There we go. And his headgear. Now let me just turn off the geometry. Joints. Actually, I'm going to put these on the headgear layer so they can turn off. Okay, so now we're just looking at the megaphone. Okay. So I lined it up pretty closely, but it's still not going to be quite correct. So what I need to do is make an extrusion. Actually, before I do that, I need to add a few lines, a few edge loops around the megaphone, so there's enough geometry to make this insertion right here. So I'm going to go to insert edge loop under mesh tools, insert edge loop, and I'll add one right there, and then one right here. And you can see I can just drag this forward and backwards, and the handle's vertices don't affect it at all. Anything forward and it stops it. So if this was a combined, if this was actually part of the same geometry, then it would stop my edge loop right there, but it's not. So I'm going to drag it right there. And now I'm going to take these faces. Yeah. And if I look from the inside, let's see where they go. If I look from the inside, you can see the handle sticking through that I very crudely just punched through there. So with those faces selected, and this, you have to be really careful. I don't know about, maybe Blender is a little bit cleaner, but Maya can be really messy when it comes to extrusions. So I'm going to go to, and I think part of the problem with extrusions is you extrude something and you think it's extruded, but or you forget that you hit extrusion, and then you extrude again. So that's what creates faces on top of faces. So let's see if this will work. So I'm going to say edit mesh. Actually, I could just go up here to the other. Let's see where my tools, modeling. So here's the extrusion button. And I'm just going to scale it. I'm going to hit this this little blue button here, and I'm going to scale it just a little bit. That's all I'm going to do, just to get it to create a little edge that I'm going to then bring these guys down into. In fact, what I could do also is, let me try this. So the bad thing is I've already kind of positioned my megaphone. You really want to be modeling where the object or the character is perfectly symmetrical. You can see it's off center and everything. And I really should have thought of this before I modeled the megaphone, but I'm just going to scale it in a little bit. And let's see, I'm going to change my center pivot. I'm sorry, the axes to object, and actually it is an object. I thought it was in world. Actually, no, that's what I want. I want world. So I'm going to scale it up just a little bit. So what I'm trying to do is line up these points a little bit closer to where they're going to hit, where the handle is going to hit. And I'm going to say face. So going back on the inside, I extruded a couple of faces. Now I'm going to actually delete these faces. And I'm going to hit 4 to make sure that I don't have anything accidentally selected. So I delete these guys. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer, hit 6. And then these guys inside here, I'm also going to select these and hit 4 to make sure nothing else is accidentally selected. Yep, you see I accidentally selected that guy. Control and deselect him. And then I can delete these guys. All right. So now I have an actual hole for this target weld to work with. In fact, I'm not going to need these faces either. So maybe I'll use a paint select tool this time. Paint select. And I'm going to go to make my brush smaller. I'm going to go to face mode and just paint on top of these. I don't need any of these. I'm going to hit 4, just make sure nothing else is selected. All right, so then I delete those. Okay, now 6. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention. So the corners of my handles are gonna, you can see how those are gonna match up pretty nicely. But that now I have 1, 2, 3 new edge loops that I need to create to help match up around the rest of the handle. Either I could do that or I could just delete those, but I want to keep that shape here. So I'm just going to add a couple more edge loops. Edge. Insert edge loop. Right there. Right there. And right here.
Quick question about
yep.
midterms. I wanted to know, for all the work that we're catching up on, when do you want that all done? Is that like by the end of the week or?
You know, let me check real quick. Let me check my calendar because I need to, that's a good question.
So a lot of my teachers are really coming down on me, like, you gotta turn it in now.
Yeah, so midterms are due on the 8th. So for our class, you need to turn in your models and your rigs, everything that we've done so far by the end. Actually, I'll give you guys, usually what I'll say, because I actually have to have grades turned in by the 8th, but I need time to grade. So let's say by Saturday at like 11:59. If you can get all your stuff done this Saturday, the 6th by 11:59, that'll give me time to grade and submit the grades for midterms.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for asking the question. That reminded me to bring that up. Okay, so here's our, so I added a total of 5 edge loops and I extruded the bottom side of this face so we can actually connect them. And then I deleted out the faces that I didn't need. So now I can start to target weld. So to target weld, I'm going to take in fact, what might be a little bit easier, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to make an edge loop around this too. Because I mean, I could just drag these vertices to the points around here. Maybe I'll just do that just to keep it easier. I was going to make another edge loop and line it up, but what I should probably do is, just for the sake of time, because I want to make sure to get to everyone's questions, I'm going to target weld this to that corner. So I say mesh tools, target weld, and I want to say target instead of center. If I were to keep center, it's going to average between these two, which is going to be somewhere up here, and I don't want it buried. So I'm going to click and drag this and the trick with target weld is you want to be careful that you don't accidentally select the wrong target. So I'm going to hit 4 and just snap these around. You know what? I might, let's see if this lines up. This might not line up perfectly, which means I might need to add a little bit more geometry, but that's no big deal. Yeah, I'm going to hit Z and I'm going to keep the corners. So I wanted to point out, you can see here on these corners, there's not the same amount of geometry. So I'm just leaving that blank for now and we'll fix that in a second. And then drag these guys in. So all that means is the megaphone had more geometry than our handle. So I need to add 2 edge loops right here and right here that'll go all the way around and give me enough geometry for both of them. So, or for both sides. So I'm gonna go back to 6 and use my insert edge loop. All right. But there's something else I wanted to point out. Let's see if maybe, well, let me just check to make sure. I just want to make sure that it actually finished on a, yeah, okay. So you can see that gave us just the right amount of geometry to finish off this handle to connect it to the megaphone. So go back to target weld. And it's already in target, so I can just snap these down. Snap this guy to here. And do the other side as well. And I probably, just out of good habit, I should be in wireframe so I can see through. So now our object is one solid piece. If I go to object mode and then I say mesh separate, it's not going to separate. If these, before I welded these, they were 2 separate objects. So now it's one solid object. And if you wanted to stick the little trigger on there too, you could do something similar. Or with this detail, I don't even know that you would need to put a trigger on. But so yeah, this is going to make it a lot easier to paint when we to assign textures, a texture map. So that's pretty much how you would combine 2 objects into one object so that yeah, texturing can be a little bit easier for you. Does anyone have any questions about what I just did? The target welding or the extrusions or the inserting edge loops?
Is this how we'll do all of them? All of our 3D models?
It depends on how you built them. Some of them, like this one definitely could use that not only combining but the extrusion and the target weld. Some of your objects may not need that. So it may be on a case-by-case basis. If you need me to help you determine if you need to do that on yours, I can do that.
Okay, because I have my wires and they have the little metal rods coming out of the top. And I'm just like, oh, those are so small. I'm going to have to go very tiny to get all those in.
Yeah, I don't think you would need to do that on that. In fact, you might want to keep it separate, but let me stop, pause the recording and we can take a look at what you're. All right, so there's our megaphone and I'll put him on a layer. And just real quickly, I'm gonna make a polygon sphere and rotate it. Actually, I'm not gonna rotate it. I'm gonna scale it, but I'm gonna give it a little bit more geometry first. Let's say 30. And yours was flattened, so I'll go ahead and let's see. So that's the front view. So I'm going to flatten it in the front view. And what you could even do, you could just build a whole sword off of this. That might be the easiest thing. So I'm going to turn on my, go to the modeling tools, and I'm going to go to symmetry and set to object X. So whatever I grab on this side is going to be the same on that side. So let's go to the front view and grab, let's see, let's actually do faces instead. I'm going to select these faces, and just to make sure that they're even all the way around, I'm going to say extrude. And then there should be a button to, where's that button? I don't want to just pull it in this axis because it's going to make them big like that. I want to pull it in a very, well, it's not giving me the little button that it normally gives. So I'm just going to hit W, and I'm still in the extrusion command. I'm going to drag it out, and you can see that gives me some extrusions. And I'm not going to make, it's not going to be perfectly your sword, but it's going to be something similar. So now I can do my insert edge loops and maybe add just a few here. And maybe I'll scale these down a little bit so it kind of tapers a little bit. I'll do some insert edge loops to the other end. And this one I'm going to make it a little bit wider so we can have some points like you do. And then I'm going to go to the, yeah. So I probably need to add a couple more edge loops. Let me add a couple more edge loops. Insert edge loop, just right here. Okay, so now I'm going to look at this from the perspective view and just grab probably these faces. Oh, I'll grab all these faces. Maybe not. I'm going to take these guys instead and just drag them up. So I'm not extruding them. I'm just dragging them up. I'm not extruding them yet. Maybe just to give myself enough geometry, and I can scale them in a little bit more. Actually, now that I've done that, maybe I could add another, before I add another edge loop, let me drag this in a little bit. And then I'll add another edge loop right down the middle so that I can have more of a point. Insert edge loop right there. Now I'm going to grab the point that I just made right here. And as long as I have symmetry, I can just drag it from the middle, and it does both of them. Maybe something like that. So then I would probably, I'm going to go to the bottom real quick. I'm going to flatten. Well, let me think. Yeah, what I would have done instead, let me do this. I'm going to duplicate. I'm just going to make a ball, and it's going to have 30 it's going to be 30 by 30 like this one. So I'm going to create a new ball and drag it down. And this one is 20 by 20. This one, yeah, you can see that there's less on the new one. So I'm going to make this 30 by 30. So there's the exact same. In fact, I don't need so much geometry around. I need the same amount around, but I don't need as much. So maybe I'm going to make it 20 by 30. Subdivisions height is what I want to be 30. Yeah, nope, that's not right. That's the other one. This one's going to be 30. There we go. So now these are going to be the same. If I select both of them, you can see that they're going to line up pretty well. But I'm going to make the bottom one smaller and then drag that down. And I'm going to build a cylinder, or maybe I don't even need to build a cylinder. I'll just take some of this geometry at the bottom. Vertices, kind of like what we did with the pawn. I'll grab these guys and just drag them down. And I might add a few edge loops later, but let's just drag this in here. And you can see that they're not going to line up perfectly, but I'm going to delete these faces. Maybe these faces. And I'm going to hit 4 so you can see what I'm doing. So I delete these faces. Now I'm going to go back to my my cylinder, or not my cylinder. I guess it's my handle, whatever. Go to vertex mode and drag these up. And I'm going to delete the inside faces just because we don't need them. So even though they're hidden, that we're not going to see them. I mean, you can hide them, but the important thing is that we're minimizing the amount of geometry that we have. We don't want to have extra geometry for no reason. All right, so these guys should line up, and they almost do. I just and they will. The important thing is they're the same amount of. Actually, let me scale this guy too. I forgot about that. Okay, so I'll merge these vertices, or I'm sorry, I'll combine. Edit mesh, combine, and now I can target weld these closed. And I'm going to start with the ones in the middle because I could see that this guy's. Oh, I'm going to. Well, maybe I'll leave the mirroring on. So tools, target weld. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, this will do twice as fast. With the mirroring on. And I can also target weld with the edges. That's how I did it last time. There we go. So there's our handle. And to get our sword, our blade, we might just use what we have here. Maybe I'll take, let me go to the front view again. And take these vertices and drag them way up. I don't know how tall your sword is, but I'll just make it a big Knights Templar sword. And grab some of these. Maybe I'll straighten it out a little bit better. And then this last one will be my tip. Maybe drag it down a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and add more geometry to this because what you don't want is these really long individual faces. So I'm going to break this up a little bit. I'm going to go back to, you know what, before I do that, I'm going to, right now it's a really dull blade. It's more like a practice blade so you don't kill each other. Well, let me see. No, I'm going to add some geometry first. Let me add some geometry first. Insert edge loop down here at the bottom. Add a couple of edges so that I can change its thickness, or yeah, because it's going to be getting narrower. And then I also wanted to break this up a little bit down here at the bottom. That's a little bit better. I could probably break these up too. Oops, Z. Yeah, it's not gonna work. Okay, so I won't do that one. And so then I would narrow the blade. So I'm gonna go to vertex mode. Oh, I'm sorry, I needed to add more. Let me do this first. I'm gonna grab this guy and this and squash them. Oops. Actually, it's gonna be easier for me to select if I'm in the front view. I'm gonna reselect these guys. Okay. And now I'm gonna scale them in the Z so it's a sharper blade, flatter blade. And maybe now I'll add my edge loops, some more edge loops, and scale it out. And I'm by no means a master of sword design. So I'm just kind of making this up as I go, but I'll scale it out. Uh-oh. Before I do that, I need to turn off my symmetry. It's still not working right. Let's see. Go back to the front view. It should be selecting right in the middle. Vertices. There we go. Now it's more symmetrical. Maybe I'll push it down some. I don't know. Anyways, and you can get more specific with the blade and get it to shape more like you want it. But anyways, that's how I would make a sword. So it's one object. We combined the sphere at the bottom, but this is going to be easier to paint, to add what's it called? Texture map to, instead of having separate objects. In fact, this probably needs to get skinnier here. It's not a really good sword design. Maybe a little taper, I don't know. Anyone ever taken a sword design class?
Do you want me to completely remodel my sword, like for Wednesday? Because I can do that if needed.
I think in the end it will make it easier for you. Yeah, I think that might be, if you don't mind doing that.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm just gonna add one more edge loop in here so it tapers a little bit. Maybe something like that. And again, you can get much more specific and maybe have some relief inside the blade or something, but I'm not going to worry about that. And so you would I would essentially treat the axe the same way. So instead of having these points here, you would just you could maybe not extrude as far out as I did and extrude much wider in the beginning, so you get more of a blade. But yeah, it's the same roughly the same kind of weapon as far as modeling it. It's just it's shaped a little bit different, but it's essentially still a T-shaped object. Yep. Does that help?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
I say that's a spiffy looking sword.
I think it's a lot better than the one I made before.